Hey everybody, this is Kapow! Kapow is a fantastic dice 1 versus 1 two-player game in which each person is going to take on the role of a superhero or a villain who have met along the streets of, Metro City or whatever you want to call it, and they are going to trade attacks and defenses and what have you until only one person is left standing. This is one of those games that has these dice that you're allowed to actually change up because there's all these different types of results that you purchase basically through the game, and then you get to add them to the die, and so the die actually becomes like what you want to. And as the game progresses, you get to actually change the die. You get to take one of these cool little diggy tools and you reach in and you pop out the thing, and maybe you replace it with a different like attack or defense that you want to use, which is also like just something about the game that I just really like. I just like being able to kind of affect what I have and what I'm going to be rolling. So the game is super fun. My family and I have been having a good time with it, my daughter and I, and why don't I show you how the game is played? Shouldn't take very long, and we'll come back here and I'll tell you more about it. Hey everybody, this is Kapow, and we're going to go ahead and show you how to play the game. Now, this is one of those games that it's relatively easy to learn, but as far as how to play the game, it has a lot of depth, meaning that as you play the game, you're going to learn different strategies and different outcomes and things like that. That is going to add a lot to how the game is played. Now, I'm just going to show you the basic game to start with. Each player in this case starts with one each of the dice except for a red die, and then they get an action die that is blank on every side except for one side has this wild token. And these are those dice that you can actually change and modify as the game progresses. And you can see there's a big pile of those, and of course these little diggy thingies that will actually dig the sides out as you play the game. Now, both players are going to start with that. They're going to start with 30 health, as noted by that marker, whether you are the villain or the hero. However, if you want to, you can play like an advanced game where like you'll have like a actual name of like superheroes, and they'll start with different starting dice, and some of them even have like different starting health. Like here is the maniacal, if you will, and like he only has a starting health of 20. Now, you don't have to play with those, and you can make up your own superheroes or whatever, but it is kind of neat that you can actually have, like, instead of having a generic hero or a villain, you can have that. Now, both players are going to have these same 3 boards in front of them, and they are going to be blocked by one of these shields, so they can't actually see those. That's important because of the fact that where your dice get placed is very important as far as like, you don't want the other person to know, like, if you're going a heavy defense round, you don't want them to know that. If you're going a heavy attack round or going some power-ups or things like that, you want to make sure that they don't know exactly what you're doing, and so maybe you can surprise them. On the inside of the player boards, there is a fantastic amount of like just reference information that really is awesome. It like telling you like the faces of the different dice and things like that. So it's just a really well made and really well designed. Something that I really appreciated about it. So it isn't just a shield, right? It's something that you can reference as you play the game. All right, so pretty basically, the way the game works is that you're going to collect all the dice that you have, of course, and you're going to drop one. No, normally you don't drop them, and then you roll them behind the screen so they don't see what you rolled. And now you're going to put these dice into different spots on your player board, and and start going through the rounds of the game. Now, this is done simultaneously. Otherwise, like in the game, as the game progresses, like whoever is the villain character will go first and will have this marker, and after the first round, whoever has the least number of hit points, like health remaining, will be the first person that goes. If you're tied, whoever was the person that had last time will go first again. So after you roll these, you're going to go ahead and place them, depending upon the die rolls, on the different locations. And so you can kind of see, like, there's some spots that say any, and that means any die can go on there, so you can do those things. Some of these will say action die on them, and that means it has to be one of these dice. You can't use a trait die to do those. And some of them, and I'm just going to, like, you'll see where it says non-blank action die, meaning that the action die, until you actually purchase more faces of these to place onto that action die, until you do that, you're going to have lots of blanks. So that's one of those things where it's looking for a die that, like, has an actual marking on it. Now, obviously, these dice are going to give you a little bit more variability because of the fact that, yes, you might have, like a fist icon on the side of this, and if you roll that fist icon, it can be used for these little fist attacks, but it also could be used for one of those as well because of the fact that it is that action die. And I should also mention, to begin with, is that as you play the game, you're going to get lots of these little faces. As you get them, you don't immediately have to put them in an action die. You can pull them behind you, and you can actually change up and switch up what your action dice have from round to round, depending upon what your strategy is going to be for that round. So you can see, just by that definition, that having these action dice is a very good idea to have because of the fact that you're allowed to use them in a lot of different varied ways other than just these basic trait dice. So the way a game works is pretty simple. You will pick which dice you're going to put in the attack roll, which you're going to put in the defend roll, and then the big one here is like the power up, because if you just stay stagnant with the same 5 dice every single time, you're going to need to go and branch out. And I'll show you attacks and defenses here in just a little bit, but a lot of these things have these like instant immediate things. You can see those immediate, it says right there on the side there. So like you can just put any die in there and you get to re-roll one other die. And when you do that, you have to tell the other player that you did that. You say, I'm putting one, and because you don't want to show it yet, but you will eventually show where your dice were after the round is over, just so you can verify what you did. And yes, technically it would be very easy to cheat in this game and say, oh, this is what I rolled. But just don't. And if you're going to play with somebody who's going to cheat anyway, well, you're not going to want to play the game with them anyway. So some of these have healing, which would, like, you do those, and it's like, oh, I'm going to take you a quick breath, and it's healing. But a lot of these things are, like, kind of like you will, react to something the other person does. So, like, this Sucker Punch ability, if an opponent gained 80 dice during power up, they lose 2 health. So like basically they're building up, and you take a chance to punch them out. Or if an opponent gained any faces during power up, they lose 1 health per face. So those are kind of some cool abilities. Now these are gain dice. So if you get that die roll plus that, you gain 1 new action die and 1 non-wild face, which you don't have to use immediately, but you can. And then, with this grow ability, you can gain 1 new trait die, so you can one of the colored dice that are over there. And then over here you have, like, you gain faces section, gain 1 non-wild face, gain 1 of the face shown. It's like, so it's the non-blank face, so you'd gain 1 of those that it has. Gain times 2 of the face shown, and then gain 3 non-wild faces. So you might say, well, how do I get a wild face? Well, this exchange 2 faces with the pool. So you can go ahead and exchange those, and you can get those wild faces at that time. So this one is you do have the ability to maybe do some damage to somebody else, and if you can outthink them and like realize that they are trying to go power up at that point, you can get a chance to do some damage to them. All right, so the other locations are pretty simple, and they work pretty much the same way. You get to do 1 base attack, and then you get to do an attack kicker, which will basically increase the attack in some way. So like if you took like your basic attack 1, but if you got this slug attack kicker plus 2, that would be a total of 3. And if you can somehow do an attack multiplier like this blast, getting these 4, you would multiply that damage by 2. So it would be 1, plus 2, 3, and then it would be 6 total damage. Defense works the exact same way. You have a base defense, and then you have a base kicker again, and then you have a multiplier as well. So you're going to compare the one person's attack to the defense, and you're going to do whatever damage is the difference between the two. And and it's possible you take 0 damage if your defense is high enough, and the same thing goes for the other player. After you've gone through everything, so you do attack, one person does the attack, you figure out how much damage they've done, you go through the power-up phase, that's when you reveal, you show that you actually back up what you said that you did, and then you remove the dice. Maybe you change up your action die if you have any sort of dice faces that you use, and then you adjust. Also, you're adjusting damage. It is quite possible that you won't even get to the power phase because you've knocked somebody out. You've taken all 30 of their health, and if that's the case, the game is over, and that's how the game is ended. I did want to show a couple things, and this happens both on this section here, but also in defense. So you can see where it's like defense kicker. Like base defense 4, but you return 1 face during the power up. So you actually like do lose. So you can't just stay stagnant with what you have. Here you have like a defense kicker +3, and opponent must return 1 face of their choice. So you can actually do like damage where actually you're going to weaken your opponent's options, or by using a really big defense, you will like of course then you'll get you'll have to lose one of the faces of your that you have. And I should mention that like the number of the colors of the dice and the number of the dice you have are open knowledge, including the faces that you have. So you can't there's no like secret information. Like the other player can ask before rolling, they can ask, can I see your dice and I see what you have and what you're going to be rolling? Can I see the faces that your die has? And then you show that to them. So it is open information that so they can plan and plot accordingly. As I said, the game is very straightforward. It's attack, defend, power up, and you just keep doing that back and forth until one person is knocked out. But as I said, as you peel the onion of this game, you start learning the different strategies and the different actions and how it is you're going to play the game to just try to defeat the other person by using like the best plan of action. Like, and obviously the action dice with the interchangeable faces, man, they add so much variability and so much fun to the game as far as like what kind of chance do I want to be able to get this result or that result, and you build up your dice how you see fit, which is a fantastic part of the game. Well, let me talk more about that in my final thoughts. All right, so that was Kapow! I mean, I'm sure a lot of us, if you're older, like I am, you remember the fantastic old Batman show with Adam West. Very sad, but fantastic show. And when I see this, I just think of the fights that Batman and Robin would get into with the henchmen of the Biff and Slam and Kapow, that sort of stuff. But anyway, as I said, the game is a heck of a lot of fun. It is super easy to teach and learn, and it is just cool. I mean, it's just the whole process of rolling the dice, trying to figure out what the other person's going to be doing, are they going to go heavy with an attack? Do I need to go heavy with defense? I mean, there's nothing more discerning when you think that they're going to just come in, punches blazing, and you build up this huge defense, and then you realize that you could have used those dice to like attack them because they did the exact same thing, or they just used a bunch of power-up dice, and you could have just totally destroyed them. And so it's one of those things where, do I separate my dice kind of evenly along those three tracks to like, determine what exactly I wanted to do? Do I just go heavy with an attack and hope that they don't do the same thing? So, and obviously the hit points and the situation, who's going first and what have you, do play into what's happening as far as like your strategy. But that's where like the I think that you think that you think that I think comes in, and I just like that. I really like the aspect of trying to deduce what the other person is going to be planning on doing and trying to come up with a plan that works against what they're trying to work for, if that makes sense. But anyway, obviously they could have made this about spaceships. They could have made it about Tyrannosaurus Rexes, whatever. I mean, as far as the combat, the theme goes, it doesn't really matter. I really dig the fact that they went with a comic book theme. I'm a big comic book guy, and nothing back in the old comic books when I read them, there was nothing cooler than like when you got an issue that was just like Spider-Man and Doc Ock going at it, or Batman and Bane, just beating the tar out of each other or something like that. And so having a just on that particular type of like, there's in comics there was always a lot of filler, right? There would always be like Peter Parker trying to pay rent, or Peter Parker getting yelled at by J. Jonah Jameson, and things like that that filled a lot of episodes, or I shouldn't say episodes, but a lot of issues. But when you would have they would always build up to that big, maybe it was a double-sized epic or something like that. It's like Kraven and Spider-Man, the brawl for all type of thing, and you knew that was just going to be full of action and awesomeness. And so in this one, just kind of distills that down into that battle that I love reading about and I love seeing. And this is the way you can do it. You can kind of act it out in your mind, and we've had a lot of fun with it, as I said, both my daughter and I, coming up with names for the superheroes and villains and going at it. And, using the ones that are included, like the actual named ones, is kind of a neat thing too, because, it gives you kind of a basis for that theme, if you will. So there you go. That's Kapow from 2 Ton Porcupine Games. What a cool game name, game publisher name, if you will. That's Kapow. If you have any questions about it, ask away. I'll be happy to answer those as best as I can. As always, thank you very much for your time and watching this video. And until next time, I'm the Undead Viking telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. All right, bye-bye.